everybody, it is Dean Z speaking to you from the University of Michigan Law School. I am here to talk to you today about a topic that I don't love and I don't think anybody else loves. That's not a great way to start. No one's going to be listening now. Please come back. You're going to love it. It's financial aid. I'm going to start with sort of a PSA kind of thing. Because we're getting lots of questions to which we don't have answers, and I'm very well aware that we are not the only law school who are getting these emails. As you may be aware, there is new legislation from the federal government that was signed on July 4th, making lots of changes, but for my purposes, most consequentially to financial aid, and specifically to the aid that professional students, law students, are entitled. So used to be most people, the vast majority of people could get a loan called a direct unsubsidized loan. Don't fall asleep, I can feel you already falling asleep, of $20,500. And then for anything you need above that, which most people need more than that, you could borrow from what's called the Grad Plus program, and that was you could borrow up to the full cost of attendance, so tuition plus cost of living. You can borrow through the Grad Plus program. Well, the Grad Plus program is soon to be no more. So for people who are starting law school this year, it will continue to exist. For people who will start in the fall of 2026, it will no longer exist. The direct unsubsidized loan increased to $50,000 a year, but that's it. You're not getting any more money than $50,000 a year from the federal government to go to law school. So that's going to leave a lot of people with a shortfall. How will they cover that shortfall? Some people will get scholarships from schools, some people have family resources, but most people will need to borrow some money. Private lenders will, I have no doubt, jump in to fill that void. I imagine there will be a difference in the way lenders treat students at certain schools. So I think some schools' students will have more success in getting private loans, possibly at lower interest rates than other schools. That's just because it's a private market, and they will make decisions about who will be, on average, better positioned to pay off their loans, and so on. I don't have a lot to say. This is very much a story that is in development, and it is worrisome to people, it is worrisome to institutions, and there is a whole lot of talk that is going on, I imagine, across the country. I can say for sure in Ann Arbor and in this law school about what the implications will be for our students, our future students, and also what the implications will be for our LRAP program, our Loan Repayment Assistance Program, where we help people pay back their federal loans if now much of your loan is private instead of federal. How will that affect what we do? I don't know. But we're going to be spending a lot of time in this coming year trying to figure that out, as will other schools, and there are many questions on the horizon. So how helpful is that I'm pointing that out? Not very helpful, I guess, but I feel like many people are aware of this. I think some people are not, because again, most people don't really love talking about financial aid. So my advice right now is be aware that this is an issue. Keep your eye out on individual schools' websites, on articles in major news outlets, and on articles perhaps in education-specific places like the Chronicle of Higher Education or Inside Higher Education, where they will be talking a lot about this. As we come up with answers at the University of Michigan, and as I learn what other schools may be doing, I will certainly be doing more videos on it. But at a minimum, I wanted people to be aware that this is a problem that's brewing. And it is a problem, or will be a problem, in particular for people who are themselves lower income, right? If you come from a family that has lots of resources, maybe they will be willing to fill the gap in a way that maybe they weren't when lots of federal loan money was available, and maybe now they will be able to step up. But there are obviously lots of people who we want to have at this law school, and who I know other law schools want too, who won't have those kinds of family resources. So we're going to have to be thinking long and hard about how we can help them. So the thinking is happening. The problem continues to exist. Keep your eyes on this space is all I want to say about that. But I was inspired to say even that much, both by questions that we were getting, but also by a specific question that I got from Ashley, who asks, I was wondering if you might speak to how the scholarship process works at law schools. How are amounts decided? Can accepted students negotiate the amount? When is it worth negotiating, and what is the best way to go about that without going too far? How do you know what you're worth as an incoming student? Which, may I say, is an excellent use of quotation marks, because she's saying worth, so-called worth, because of course we are all worth a lot because we're human beings. Okay, anyway, that was a shout out to my last grammar episode on quotation marks. Okay, anyway, so I thought that's a great set of questions from Ashley, and I thought, I know people are always interested in this question, so I wanted to talk briefly about how does one approach the scholarship process. So each school will have its own system. Honestly, as different as admissions can be from school to school, financial aid is more different. But in some schools have need-based aid only. That's only a handful of schools. Some schools have merit-based only. That's many more schools. And some schools have merit and need-based. That's what Michigan does. And then some schools, even the schools that have just so-called merit, it will often be taking into account information they might have about your apparent need when they're assessing your merit award. Complicated. By merit, I hate that term because I think all students have merit. If I admitted you, I think you have merit, right? But what it really means is how much does a school have to compete to hope to get you to enroll? And it's sort of a measure of how many other schools does that school think you are going to get into that are appealing to you, and how much money is it going to take for you to find the school in question more appealing than those other schools, if that makes sense. And then the need-based element, of course, is just a question of straight up, your finances. How much money can you afford to spend on law school or to take on in debt to go to law school? In trying to determine a student's merit or worth or competitiveness, a school is mostly looking, at the outset at least, at your LSAT and GPA. Those are the two prime drivers of financial aid awards that are non-need-based, which is discouraging. I don't love that, but that is the system that we're in, and it's really hard for any one school to make a change in that system. So I'm not defending it, but that is the system that I feel, honestly, I am stuck in working within. So, but then beyond that, we're also looking at other elements of your application that might make you particularly appealing. So that could be, some schools are going to really care about first-gen students. Some schools are really going to care about particular work experiences. Some schools are going to care a lot about whether you're from that state. Some schools are going to care about, I don't know. You get the idea, right? Like all kinds of things. Schools care about different things. So that they will, at the margins, those other factors will also play into the amount that a school elects to award a given student for a scholarship. How much do they need to pay you to get you to come is basically what the question is here. And they recognize that they aren't always going to get it right. So we at Michigan have lots of data over the course of many years showing students who, have these credentials accept X amount of the time and tend to overlap with these schools or whatever it is, right? And so we have a pretty good sense of, in the aggregate, what a student who looks a certain way in terms of their credentials is going to do when we admit them. But of course, that's just in the aggregate, right? And so some students are going to have, particular interest in Michigan or particular non-interest in Michigan that we aren't privy to, we can't tell. But we make our financial aid policy, and this is true for any school, based on the aggregate data, like what happens in large measure across the board. Is this super boring? Okay.
I'm going to leave that in.
I just paused, I should say, to ask Dustin, is this unbelievably boring? And he said, yes, it is. Please hang in with me, though, because I think I'm almost through the most boring part and the most sort of discouraging part. So whatever, the school sets up its, little chart of like, this is how much we think we're going to give you. And then when you get admitted, hopefully they are clear. And I should say also, this varies widely from school to school. At Michigan, within a few weeks of admitting you, we communicate about financial aid. So, and schools are not consistent on that, and that is frustrating, I think, for us and for you. But you find out what you're going to get, and let's say it's February, and you've been admitted or accepted, or admitted or denied from the schools that you applied to, and you have most of your awards, and your heart is set on Michigan, and Michigan hasn't given you anything. What do you do? Or an alternative scenario, you have all your awards, Michigan has given you something, but you would like a little bit more. What are you going to do? Those are similar, but slightly different. So that's where Ashley's question comes in, and that's where I think the interesting part of this episode is going to be. So I hope you're still watching. So first of all, I wouldn't call it negotiating what you are going to do at this point, because negotiating sort of presupposes two people who are equally situated, or and each have sort of a certain amount of power, if you will, in the scenario before them. And the fact of the matter is, an admitted student just doesn't have anything like what the law school has in terms of negotiating power. You can say, I won't come. And the law school would like you to come, but if you don't come, they're banking on that. We admit more people than are going to enroll in our class. We just know that, right? And then there's also a wait list usually that we can pull from if we don't enroll the class size that we hope to enroll. So you have that's your one card that you can play, and it's not an ace. Let's just say that. So you're not really negotiating. What you are doing is trying to communicate and get information from the school in an effort to get a better, larger award package. And you should know, even though I just talked about power imbalances and so forth, you should know schools do want to enroll you. And schools, for the most part, I truly believe that the people who are working at law schools, they care about students and they want to help. So your goal as a student is, how do I make them want to help me? And how do I avoid doing a thing that's going to make them want to have me go to some other school, right? So it's kind of obvious, and the answer is politeness, right? So you should, first of all, feel very empowered to reach out and say, I have real concerns about the amount that law school is going to cost me, and I'm appreciative of the award you've given me. Or if you haven't gotten an award, you wouldn't say that, of course, but you'd say, like, I recognize, I'm appreciative of having been admitted, perhaps, but I'd really like to talk to someone about whether it's possible to change my award. And usually what they're going to want to, you have to give them a why, like, well, why should we give you more? And just wanting it is not a reason. Reasons would include, a school that is very like your school has given me a lot more, or reasons might include, I have all these financial pressures that may not be evident to you, like, I come from a family that, has no money and they can't support me, and I have, lots of debt from undergrad, or whatever, your financial situation is. So you have to give them some facts that will be compelling to make them think, okay, even though this person lands in this particular type of bucket, that gets $20,000 a year, they have given us information to make us think that maybe they belong in a different kind of bucket that should get them $30,000 a year. So you have to think about what it is that you could say that would make someone think that. And usually it is that another school is giving you a lot more money. But again, it has to be a school that is similar to the school that you're talking to, because the fact of the matter is that, just getting money from a school doesn't mean you're going to take that offer, right? So if you have a school that is very unappealing to you, that is giving you $1 kajillion a year, and then there's a school that is much more objectively appealing and they're not giving you anything, you may not take it when it's nothing, but you also are going to take it for less than $1 kajillion. And they know that, right? So the closer you can get in terms of similarity of schools, in terms of, which is, we have data showing how many times someone chooses Michigan over XYZ school and how many times they choose XYZ school over Michigan. And you guys probably have a pretty good intuition about what schools those are. You have a pretty good sense of what the competitor schools are for the schools that you are interested in. And so those are the schools that you are gonna, the awards are gonna be most compelling in terms of changing your outcome of financial aid. Ashley quite wisely says, at what point is it going too far when you're having these conversations? And the fact of the matter is, if they have told you there's nothing we can do, or here's what we can do, it's X thousand dollars, that's it, right? Like, do not, well, I mean, you can keep pushing, but the chance that you're going to get a different outcome is nil. Like, it's just, the schools aren't, it's not like buying a used car, right? They're not playing games. They're going to do for you what they can do for you, and they have policies in place, and they have deans that are watching what they are doing, and everybody knows how much they can spend, and they can't spend more than that. And so they have constraints. They have to stay in business too. So once you get an answer, it doesn't make a lot of sense to keep pushing, and it will create a lot of bad feeling for you, and it certainly will create a lot of bad feeling for them, which maybe you don't care about, but I think we should all care about that, because we're all humans. We're all together in this human race, right? So yeah, that's, at some point, the answer is the answer. So best advice here, treat them the way you would like to be treated, be courteous, and, be polite, but, tenacious. Don't be hesitant to ask about this. It's absolutely fine to be asking about it, but recognize the limits of your power here. Okay, I hope that is useful. I hope that anybody is still watching. That's really what I hope. All right, let's talk about grammar, shall we? So I'm going to give you a law grammar thing. Assault. We talk all the time about, like, so-and-so assaulted me, right? And in common parlance, that you think that means that someone punched you or whatever, right? In the law, an assault is like the threat of an actual bodily incursion. The name for when you actually get hit is battery, right? So if I get slapped in the face, that's a battery. But if someone just goes like this, that's an assault, okay? So yeah, so when you're a lawyer, you can go around being really tiresome and saying, actually, that's not an assault, that's a battery, or whatever. But totally different terms, and for whatever reason, I just think it's interesting that the battery never really makes its way in. I mean, I think maybe you've heard it and everything, now that I'm saying it, it rings a bell, but it doesn't make its way into common dialogue, and I just think that's interesting, a little mystery there. I don't know why that would be. All right, well, I've said all I can say today. Go take a nap to get over how boring this was, and send us your comments and questions. Really appreciate it. Love to hear what you want to hear about. Put some comments below if that's helpful, or send us an email to law.jd.admissions@umich.edu with a vlog in the subject line. Thanks to Dustin, and wherever you go, go blue.